Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hitting Your Stride. Tracy Mitchell here from Equestrian Elements Life Coaching. Today's episode is kind of a special one, and it's slightly different. First off, I have a special guest with me here today, and we're actually in person. So before I get to that, I just want to touch on the fact that we are 3 days past the 1-year anniversary of Hitting Your Stride's very first episode. And that is mind-blowing to me. It's super exciting. And I'm sure in this conversation with my special guest, we'll sort of touch on where that journey has brought me along. But this will be my 28th episode within the year of, well, just 1 month past a year of 2021. I started in December 20th of 2020, and here we are. And it's been an amazing journey. I've been extremely grateful and feel so blessed to have everybody that has taken their time to join me on this podcast and share their thoughts and experiences, and just trying to, help people grow and, do what they can to better themselves and reach their goals and experience cool things in life. And I am here today with my brother, Rob Mitchell. And if anybody has not listened to or seen the 4th episode of Hitting Your Stride, Rob was one of my first guests that I had on. So welcome, Rob.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's fun to be here.
In person. So again, for those of you that are listening to this, we are recording this on December 23rd.
Yeah.
So we've got some family time going on, but you will be listening to this right at the precipice of the new year. So it's either going to be December 31st or January 1st. So I thought I would take advantage of having Rob here at home and to do this episode together, because he's one of the most driven people that I've ever met in like every positive way possible, in someone that pushes himself to reach his goals. So, this might be a bit of a conversation on setting goals. And who does not want to think about setting their goals at this point in time, right, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that time of year when everyone's kind of aligning, the next year and thinking about what they want to accomplish. So
yeah. So, Rob, for those that have not heard the 4th episode, do you mind giving the listeners a little bit of a rundown of your who you are and where you've been and where you're at now?
Yeah, right on. Well, I grew up in Lucan, Ontario, where I spent most of my childhood. Attended Medway High School, was involved in athletics and really kind of found my footing there, and found a passion for sports and wellness while I was in school. Went on to the University of McMaster, where I was a varsity level football player for 5 years and had opportunities to play in the CFL, and went to a CFL tryouts with the Montreal Alouettes back in 2009. And after that, I decided to get into teachers college. And since 2012, once I graduated, I've worked with at-risk youth and youth from the justice system in a wilderness context, out in the bush, if you will, and working with youth. And I've also been fortunate enough to return to Lucan for a period of about almost 5 years, where I started up a gym, Whole Health Fitness, and then as life, things change and passions change, and so I moved on from that, and then found myself where I am now, which is working for Lac LaCroix First Nation as a principal in a community that's about 3 hours west of Thunder Bay. So I'm home for Christmas right now and hanging out with my sister and brother-in-law, and so it's been awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy to have you here. And so we have always been good at sitting down and having some pretty cool conversations.
Mm-hmm. And I know at the beginning you said you want to keep this under 45 minutes, but I'm chuckling because I feel like sometimes we get carried away.
Oh, we can do that very easily, but let's try to stay on track.
All right.
Okay. What would you say because, as I was like, because we're kind of winging this. This is something that, again, like I said, Rob and I chat very easily, and we're both very like-minded with this kind of stuff. And I know I get excited about the new year and the possibilities, and I love setting goals for myself, and I love challenging myself. What would you say would be your philosophy? Like, just something that you feel like you've grown within yourself over the years as to who you are now.
Honestly, the first thing that came to my mind, and that question wasn't even scripted, but when you asked that question, the first thing that came to my mind was that ultimately I control my destiny, and how I respond to challenges or unseen circumstances that may arise. That's in my control, that's in my power, and how I respond to that and those challenges, despite whatever my goal might be. That's kind of my philosophy, that like the ball's always in my court, and the opportunity to choose to go left or right or straight ahead is always something that resides with me. So kind of that personal will to power.
I like that. Personal will to power. All right. So what happens then? Because I know we've all been there where we have our sights set on something that we want to achieve, and something happens that might derail us. If that's ever happened to you, what do you tell yourself to get yourself back on track and realize that it is still within your power?
I think a lot of it, I think metaphors and analogies are useful tools to help me overcome challenges. For example, since the time I was 13, I've been spending my time in the gym and preparing and trying to temper my body for a long time to play high level sports, but it's more or less become a lifestyle. And to this day, I think of the life lessons that the gym has provided me. And in a very real way, I think about, the adversity that comes within the moments of doing one set of an exercise. Like, let's say you put X amount of weight on a back squat and you're doing squats, and you know what? It sucks. Your legs burn, your heart rate's up, you're breathing. But at the end of the day, ultimately you're going to benefit from it. And I think in a very real way, that's a lesson that I often try to apply to my life experience. And when things get blindsided or things come out of left field for me, it's kind of that I go to that mindset where it's like, hey, like, this is like the fourth set of the day, like it's time to dig down. It's time to grit your teeth. I didn't plan for this, but you know what? I think there's also a great deal of beauty and power that comes with being able to like respond to unforeseen challenges. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I feel like, and for the riders listening, I mean, that's a prime example where all of a sudden your horse is going one way and you're going the other. And it's not at all the way you expected to end your trip in the ring or your test or whatever it is that you're doing. But what do? I mean, it's that life analogy of get back on the horse and finish the ride. And so just setting those goals for yourself, understanding that things might not work out the way you want. But there's an opportunity to grow, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you this before, and I think I actually mentioned it in our last podcast. I used to work with a gentleman at our outdoor school, and he used to say sometimes it's okay to shoot the arrow and then paint the bullseye.
Yes.
And I think it's important to remember that, like, we can never predict life, and we can never really fully prepare for, what's coming around the corner. So I think it's important to obviously be flexible and adaptable and just being realistic.
Yeah. And you don't have to be perfect.
No.
So like, as this new year is approaching, we don't, if you're the goal setting type, that's awesome. Then this conversation is for you. If you're someone that's like, well, if I set a goal, it's probably just going to flub itself in 3 weeks, or I never make it past March. Well, then this conversation could still be for you too, because everybody's got the possibility to do what they want to achieve. So let's talk about these SMART goals. Some of you out there might have already heard of these, but this is an acronym to help you set goals And you would describe this SMART goals as something that's sort of like an easy starter point, right?
Absolutely. It's I know a lot of different organizations use it as a means to help their employees, but as an educator, I've taught a few courses in the Ontario curriculum where I often get my students to apply SMART goals either on a long-term scale throughout the entire course year, or even on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And so they're extremely valuable, and because it's an acronym, it kind of condenses it and helps you frame what it is exactly that you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so let's look at the first one then. For the first one for SMART goals is that your goal should be specific.
Yeah.
Can you explain that one a bit?
Yeah. So if your goals are rather generalized and maybe even to a certain extent abstract, I think sometimes we can get lost. It's a little bit easier in that sense to kind of fall off the wagon. So it's really important to really kind of establish that foundational principle that's unwavering regardless. And it being specific, it's, there isn't a whole lot of variability in what could possibly come from it. So knowing exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish is the first step, right? Because otherwise, if you don't have that destination, how are you going to get there?
So you want to, if you're someone that's maybe challenged a little bit and trying to draw something out specific for yourself, sometimes it's great just to talk to somebody about it. Say, okay, this is, I don't know, I think I want to do this. Well, then let's put some specifics into that goal, right?
Yeah.
To help them map something out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. So then the next one is measurable. So these goals have to be specific, and now they have to be measurable. What do you mean by that?
Well, there has to be a way that you're essentially tracking your success, right? So it's one thing to say, whatever goal you may want to achieve, if you can't essentially show yourself. And I know, for example, like myself, if I can't see my progress, or not that I can't see it, but perhaps maybe I'm having a tough day and my morale is maybe a little bit lower than it normally is, being able to like look at my goals and notice the progress that I'm making is significant in not only helping me maintain my motivation, but also just reassuring myself that I'm on the path that I initially set out to find.
And for those that are like, oh, but I never measure it far enough along, what can you say to that? Like just little itty bitty bits, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything significant. It could be as simple as like having a checklist for your day, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like having a checklist for your day, and maybe if it's, for example, a goal that you're attempting to accomplish in 6 months to 12 months, having your quote unquote measurable aspect could be having these 5 things that you're going to accomplish every single day, right? And then over a period of time, you could say, well, in the last week, Monday through Thursday, I was successful. Friday, I got 4 out of 5, and whatever it might be. So being able to measure it. And then, I'm the type of person, I like to see things in percentages. I don't know if it's just because I'm a teacher and I like to know that I'm maintaining an A average or something like that, but I'll often like translate it into a percentage, and I'll say to myself, well, I'm batting 89% right now. I'm pretty happy with that.
And what's your self-talk if you don't get the 5 out of 5 things you're doing every day? What if you only get 3? What do you say to yourself?
Well, as we'll see, as part of the SMART goals, there's a realistic aspect to it, right? Okay. So, I mean, if, for example, there's like an emergency or something, like, I mean, I'm a principal right now at a school. I go in every morning and I sit at my desk and I spend about 20 to 30 minutes in quiet, writing out all of the things that I have to do that day. Very often I never get that whole list complete because there's behavioral issues, there's, parents calling, there's like all of these things that sideblind you. So it's like, you have to be reasonable with yourself. You have to be realistic. You can't assume that like day in and day out, I'm going to be able to accomplish that. Yeah. And so it's one thing to be motivated and to be driven, but it's also another thing to be unrealistic about life and what life can throw at you.
Because then that sort of, if you only get the 3 out of 5, your self-managing skills, I think, kind of come up and say, okay, so I only got 3 out of 5. Then it doesn't mean a previous guest, someone you know well, Ryan Mitra, right? Ryan trained Rob for the CFL tryouts. That was a great interview as well. And like Ryan said, as far as reaching your health or fitness goals, just because you have one flat tire doesn't mean you pop the other 3.
Right, exactly. Like, don't undermine yourself.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
it's, and kind of the way I would see it, like, to be truthful, would be that, well, I'm still above 50%. I'm still passing, and it's one day, right?
Yeah.
Like, not every day do you wake up, do you feel like $1 million?
Yeah.
Not every day, especially if you have a long-term goal or something that is in greater than, say, a year, then it's like, what, not every day is going to be, you're going to be jazzed about it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's part of the growth, right? Is rolling with it.
Okay, so we've done specific, we've done measurable. The next one in our SMART goals is attainable.
Right. So choosing a goal that is attainable. So when I'm working with my students or even with clients in the past in the gym, for example, if I was working with someone that was quote unquote beginner level fitness, maybe one day they would have a 300-pound back squat. But I'm not going to necessarily start that off. I'm not going to say, hey, 4 years down the road, you're going to be able to do a 300-pound back squat.
Right.
It has to be something that's attainable, so that people are able to focus. And along the way, I think it's also important to have those little quote unquote success moments that allow you to maintain that momentum. So those attainable goals can not only apply to your ultimate goal, but also your daily steps, right? Yep. So maybe your attainable goal is to get on your horse once a day, right? Or maybe it's to get on your horse 3 times a week, right? So whatever it might be, it has to be attainable. It has to be something that you can manage, and that you can organize and that you can implement. And even to a certain extent that you can be flexible with, because like I mentioned before, things are going to come from left field some days. So having that attainability is essential to goals being successful.
Well, and this is pretty cool too, having this conversation at this point in time, because the 2022 show season will be starting, I don't know, May. I think maybe the first show, or there might be some schooling shows ahead of time, and people have maybe purchased their Silver Series passes. They're committed to this next season. They've bought in. So whatever the plan is for each horse and rider who might be listening to this, it's like, okay, so how do I get myself going on this? Because there's 5 months to that starting point. What do these riders need to do? So it's like, I might say, what do you need to prepare yourself for that next show season? You've got 5 months. Do you need to be a little bit more fit in the tack? Do you need to work on your time management? Do you need to work on riding more in a week, etc.? Do you need to work on your work life and managing your life outside of the barn, so that when you come to the barn to focus on this goal, nothing, not everything is getting in your way? So there's all sorts of different ways we could look at that. But that's definitely, something as far as the attainable thing goes, that right now, people looking ahead, I can guarantee you that like 95% of the people listening to this right now that have set goals for this upcoming show season, it's attainable, because
sure.
I mean, they've got good coaches behind them. They've got good life coaches working with them, all that kind of stuff works together. So you can plan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So we've done specific, measurable, attainable, and now we are at realistic.
Yeah. Which is the big one, right? And it's often the tough one. And it's not to diminish anyone that has great aspirations, because I think it's important to dream big. The old saying, like, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you land amongst stars. Like,
love it.
I know it's a great little saying, but I think that really is truthful in the sense that, like, it's important that we're realistic about where we're at right now and ultimately where we're going. In terms of being realistic, to just kind of give you some context, it's kind of like, well, if a middle-aged person came to me and said, I want to play in the NHL, and most people enter that league at 18, 19, 20, maybe 21. So it's kind of like, you have to be realistic with what you're trying to accomplish. I'm never of the mindset that I would ever tell someone, not, that's not possible, but there are certain, I would say, necessary sub goals that would have to fall in place before
I love that. Sub goals. That's a good way to look at it. Because like you said, when someone says, I want to, master, let's say, level 3 dressage this next year, but maybe your horse isn't quite right. That doesn't have the natural capability of doing something like that. I guess the good sub goal would be to polish your skills, get this horse as developed to a level 3 as you possibly can, where it's happy, healthy, enjoying its work, and the two of you have a great relationship, and then find the next step to reaching that goal.
And maybe, I think that and we'll cover the last part, but I think oftentimes when it comes to the New Year's resolutions and whatever it might be, it's almost like our goals are often confined to 365 days.
Right.
It's almost like we limit ourselves. So who's to say that, like, your goal can't also be a 5-year goal, right? And in which case, the example you provided, my mindset would be like, okay, well, then if it's a 5-year goal to get your horse to that point and yourself to that point, then, like, what if you broke it down into sub goals, like we just said, right? So this year, what are your goals, right? And then what necessary steps are you going to take to ultimately reach that 5-year goal, right?
I get so nerded out on this stuff. It's it's so much fun. It just makes me want to plan and test myself. All right. So the last one for our SMART acronym for the T is time. What does that mean?
Well, it basically just means you have to tell yourself that there's going to be a deadline. Like, you have to give yourself a deadline, and it kind of goes hand in hand with being realistic. And sometimes, like, part of learning is making mistakes. And, I'm the type of person that, like, I have the mentality that when I put my mind to something, I don't care what's in my way. I'm going to grit my teeth and I'm going to be successful regardless of what happens. But there are often times, like, when I, for example, and because it's a realm that I'm comfortable with, like, sometimes I'll program a workout for myself. And I'll get into the workout and I'll say to myself, what was I thinking? Like, this is so hard, right? And I persevere and I push through, but at the same time, it's kind of like, it's like, whoa, it just really knocks your socks off. So you gotta have a time limit at the end of the goal, so that you can say to yourself, well, because otherwise, if you don't have the pressure and the expectation, sometimes we become wishy-washy. And ultimately there has to be a certain level of firmness when it comes to achieving what it is that we want.
We got to make ourselves accountable. And that is really difficult for some people. And I mean, I think I'm pretty good at it. I definitely need a support system. Now, all the listeners here, if you don't know, well, then I'm sharing it with you right now. If you don't follow Equestrian Elements Life Coaching on social media, is that I made the commitment and the goal to take part in the CrossFit Open. What is it? The end of February, beginning of March? Yep. So it's getting close. And my coach, Patrick, my personal trainer, Patrick, is someone that Rob knows really well. When Rob owned Whole Health Fitness, he brought Pat on as a trainer. Pat is amazing. I will be having him on before the Open, so all of you can hear more about my story and stuff that Pat and I deal with day to day, or what he deals with dealing with me. But yes, this CrossFit Open. So, and Rob, like I love watching Rob do what he does physically for himself, because you test yourself more than anybody I've ever known. And I always call on my DNA, because I know I've got that in me. And I don't say this too loud or too often out loud, but I turned 50 this past June.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop whoop. And yeah, so this is a big goal for me. I've always been physically active. Strength is hands down
It's
one
your
of
wheelhouse.
That is my wheelhouse. It's like times when Rob would train me and I'd be feeling down, and I'd come into the gym and he's like, all right, let's just throw some heavy shit around, right? So deadlifting just makes me smile. So yeah, this is a big thing for me. It is there's a date. And
so I was just about to say, so let's apply your goal to the SMART. To the SMART goal. So it's specific because you have 3 workouts over 3 weeks,
which I did not know. I know. I did not know this when I committed to this, and then Pat mentions that, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, he mentioned it to me, and I had a chuckle to myself. So it's specific. Okay. Each workout, because you yourself are not only competing with yourself, but for those that aren't aware, it's basically an international fitness competition. So it's measurable, because you're not only going to see your own progress in the workout, but you're also going to be able to see yourself in comparison to other people. And I know for me, the competitive side of myself as an athlete, like I love the thrill of knowing where other people are, because then it, like, when push comes to shove, I'll be like, oh, they did it in 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to do it in 19. Right?
Well, last year's CrossFit Open, you came in top 15 in Canada.
Well, for one specific workout.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
For the 36 and over, I entered the master class this year. So yeah. So your goal is measurable. Okay. It is very attainable, because I mean, the great thing about the CrossFit Open is that there are age categories, everything from 18, it goes 18 to 35 is quote unquote the standard category. But then every subsequent category is comprised of 5 years, and it goes all the way up to 80. So it's attainable, right? Like it's for everyone, right? It's very realistic, and there is a time limit. So you only have 3 weeks to get it done. So
yeah. And you know what? For the perfectionist side in me, and I have a lot of clients, like a lot of massage therapy clients out there that I work for, that know that I'm doing this, and everybody's like, hey, Trace, how's it going? And I'm like, first of all, thank you for the support. I know that I've got everybody's support. I'm not looking to go and like get a ranking.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I don't want that to sound like I'm, oh, I'll just do it and whatever. I'm going to bust my butt. But this is almost like more of a personal thing for me.
For sure.
Because like the whole endurance aspect of CrossFit can be challenging. It's a huge mental thing. And I know that's what Pat and I are going to touch on. I've learned a lot about me and how I move and activate outside of the gym, doing these things with Patrick preparing. And the realistic part is I'm not going to push myself to the point of stressing myself out, trying to achieve something that at 50, is something that, I still do. I don't know. I'm dedicated to this because I want to share the experience with other people and have them know that it can be done. Quite honestly, though, I really love like the weightlifting stuff.
For sure.
I want to get back to tire flipping and doing all that kind of stuff. And then the time, this was huge for me, because I will say the biggest thing to get me to commit to this was committing my time. So not only is it a set time that, okay, here is when the open is, but for me, I had to set my schedule and commit to myself 2 times a week with Patrick, and then a minimum of 1 more day a week to myself going to the gym and doing something. So it's been hard, but I feel like I've really benefited from it. And I feel like other aspects of my life have grown from doing this goal.
And I think really what you're hitting on is the notion of discipline. And I think that like it's one thing to be, quote unquote romanticize about achieving goals and stuff, but when push comes to shove, I think that like discipline, which is like the hardest thing to do, and I was sharing with you earlier today just kind of some of the things I'm doing to kind of help myself feel more aligned and more empowered within myself, is doing a morning routine.
Yeah.
So my morning routine recently has been to get up at 5 a.m, and I make my way to the kitchen and press on to the coffee machine. And then I make my way and I go and have like a cold bath. That's like, well, ice bath for anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. A little bit of helps to boost your immune system. I know a lot of people like, why would you do that? And some mornings, honestly, I'm like, why am I doing this? But then I remember, like I really like pushing my boundaries. I love like the thrill of knowing that like I persevered this challenge of feeling like when I woke up this morning, I didn't want to do this, but I know that the health benefits of undergoing that far outweigh the benefits of being lazy and staying under the covers for 30 minutes, and the warm comfort. And the truth is that life isn't found in our comfort zones. Life is found outside our comfort zones and embracing challenges. So I do my ice bath. I get up, I go and grab my freshly brewed coffee. I usually do about 10 or 15 minutes of meditation. And then I'll either, once that's done, I'll either listen to an audiobook or I'll read. And it's all about like personal development and personal growth. Because, we were talking about earlier, like maybe like what I'm focusing on this next year. And I would really have to say is to be the most well-rounded individual I can. So I have a goal of reading, say, 12 books, basically one book a month, right? And these are like measurable aspects, right? Getting back some of my weightlifting numbers that I was doing before I kind of took on the role as principal, and now that I'm in the role that I'm in, and after 2 years of kind of learning how to navigate this new position in the community and everything like that, I feel like the way that I'm going to be successful is by finding myself again. And not that I'm not successful at what I'm doing right now, but I do feel like there's a part of my personality that I really need to honor in this next year, which is that kind of that warrior mindset and warrior spirit a little bit, and challenge myself physically. And because Lord knows my job challenges me every day, but if I'm not right and I'm not aligned within myself and waking up, and when I walk in, I'm already as sharp as a sword could be, then it can be a little bit you can get sidetracked and beat up.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, because I don't know, in today's world when there's so much to sidetrack you, the ability to actually take yourself out of the mix, whether it be for a half an hour or 10 or 15 minutes. My ritual that I have started within probably the last 3 weeks, because I was feeling very scattered, because the life coaching is amazing. I'm loving it. I'm busy. The massage therapy, the equine massage therapy is amazing. Loving it. I'm busy. How am I finding? So my personal development and personal growth has been finding the time to have my focus work on that. So I set the alarm for 6. I don't know. I would like to. I think right now, this time of year has been really hard on me getting up. I'm sure everybody can agree. I know once things start getting lighter in the morning, I will probably start getting up at 5:30, but my alarm is off at 6. I'm up at like 6:10 at the latest. I come into the office here. I sit down on my yoga bolster. And I'll even put in earplugs just to keep out any extra sound. But I just let divine downloads come to me. Like what messages am I listening to? What creative thoughts do I want to draw? And then I just start writing this stuff down. And then I take, depending on what my morning has in store, 10, 15 minutes to do a meditation as well. So just doing that has given me the opportunity to collect myself and get focused.
Yeah, that discipline itself is setting up the rest of your day to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would probably attest to the experience of when you start getting 1 or 2 things in a row and you can feel that momentum building, whether it's in a team kind of aspect or whether it's in your own personal life, like building that momentum, it makes your day that much easier, your goals that much easier. So being consistent with that aspect of discipline and doing it first thing in the morning, like not staying under the covers for another half hour and hitting the snooze alarm, I think can really make a huge difference in how you approach your day, and just also how like shakeable you are, right? Because I think that when you align your body, mind, and intention first thing in the morning, and you say, this is what I want to be and this is what I want to do today, then I think that it gives you more clarity and insight throughout the day when, you know, things from left field come, or
So for those that are listening right now, it says, oh my goodness, this is really great. And I can relate. I know I've been there at moments in my life. It's like, how do I just slow everything down in my brain? Or in some cases, how do I get an energy boost? You know, because it's all about changing.
Take a cold bath.
You know, and my listeners that have listened to all of my episodes are going to laugh at that, because I did one where I take cold showers, and I love it.
It's exhilarating, and it wakes you up, and I mean, there's countless health benefits with that kind of stuff. I love it too.
Anyway, so what can you, so let's say you're back at the gym and you've got a client that's really challenged right now and is having a hard time picking themselves up and, you know, focusing on that goal or making the changes necessary. What would you say to someone right now who's experiencing that?
Start small. Like, it's the little things, right? You know, like I just listed off about 5 or 6 things that I try to do every morning, but maybe your goal is just to get your feet on the floor. Like, maybe you are that someone, and maybe you don't particularly like that aspect of your personality, and you get frustrated with the fact that you keep hitting the snooze alarm. So maybe you just start small. You got to start somewhere. Lao Tzu, the Taoist philosopher, said that the first step in a 1,000-mile journey is always the hardest. And I think that speaks to that momentum aspect, right? Like, once you get 2, 3, 4, 5 steps completed, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, okay,
look at me go.
Right, I'm starting to gain momentum. I'm starting to move towards my goal. So I think really it's starting small. So if, just to use the morning as an example, maybe you are someone that opts to hit the snooze alarm, and you yourself know that it's not really benefiting you, and it's kind of counterintuitive to your goals, then say, you know what, this morning I may like sit at the edge of my bed for a minute or two to collect myself and maybe like try to wake myself up, but just get your feet on the floor.
I know those times where I felt tested. It's I feel bad. Like I'm letting myself down. If I stay in bed, or if I press snooze, or if I don't get up at minimum of 10 minutes after the alarm went off, I will know. It's like, Tracey, you're letting yourself down if you don't do this. And I, you know, like you said, drag yourself out of bed, but then there's that sense of accomplishment.
Like, that's a victory. And I don't think people, like, I think sometimes that gets lost in it, you know what, like, and I'm going to paraphrase because I know there's Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher, talks about, he actually has a direct quote about talking about the repercussions of staying under the comforters.
Oh, really?
And I'll have to find the quote and I'll send it to you. But he basically says that, like, you know, we only have finite time on this, you know, on this earth, and ultimately, you know, our time here is for our personal development and our personal growth, and you know, so we're undermining ourselves, and we're also undermining the people in our lives, because the only wealth that we really can give away is our time and our energy. So so it's one of those things where I think it's important to kind of always have that perspective, and it's something that I've gained tremendously just from reading philosophy and engaging with it in meaningful ways, that you know, I haven't always been an early riser. I think in my teens I was probably most teens, I was, you know, I'd rather stay up late and sleep in, but you know, now I'm the type of person where it's like, I want to get up before the sun gets up, and to watch the sunrise in the morning is also extremely beautiful. So
I love that. And I'm kind of surprised that with the comment of time being finite, you didn't mention your sister's age.
We're on a podcast right now, so I
you really want to, don't you? Okay, so a couple of the other things that we thought that we would talk about that were sort of prevalent in our lives right now, and I know with my coaching clients and so many other people I talk to, are boundaries. Yes, like, how do you set boundaries for yourself? Let's just be honest, without pissing other people off,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
How do you experiencing that? I mean, in your work situation,
Yeah.
you're in charge of like leading teachers and
Mhm.
kids and all this kind of stuff. How do you set boundaries for yourself outside of work?
Well, to be honest with you, I more or less just quite frankly tell people, either directly, or implicitly. Like I'll say, someone may say to me, you know, uh, what are your plans for the weekend? And I'll say, well, because I'm on from 7:30 in the morning until 5 at night throughout the whole school day, that's dealing with people, working with people, responding, putting fires out, dealing with kids, like, and don't get me wrong, I love it. But at the end of the day, I also know that I can't do that successfully unless I have time for myself to recharge, collect myself, maybe even do some personal development, go to the gym, meditate, read, whatever it might be. So I think there has to be an aspect of fearlessness. Like, it's your health, it's your wellness. No one else is going to take time for you. No one else is going to award you time for it. So it's like you have to draw lines in the sand. You have to be honest with people. And so, for example, with some of my staff, I may say, like, I'm here from 7:30 till 5. I usually do maybe an extracurricular with the kids after that, but 8 o'clock rolls around, I draw my blinds, the world can go away. Like, this is my time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to spend time with my partner and my dogs, and that's where I want to be. And the challenge at times, and don't get me wrong, like, I love the community and the situation I'm in, but it is a really unique work situation in the sense that I'm working in that northern community. I'm the principal, and I'll often, people will come to me at all hours of the night with, trying to find the answers to things or whatever it might be. And I've just had to be honest with people. I'm like, you know what? It's not an emergency. The house isn't burning down. I'll deal with it in the morning. Like, come find me in the morning. But this is my time right now. And, so yeah, just being honest and my experience in being honest with people, I feel like more people are open to you being frank with them than you misleading them and trying to duck and dodge them and almost create a suspicion. Because then maybe the individuals, maybe they're close friends, maybe they're family members, they're like, why aren't they wanting to spend time? Like, don't let them assume that, the reasons what behind it. And maybe it is related to your goals, right? Maybe it's related to that 1-year goal, 2-year goal that you're trying to achieve. Then just say, hey, like, this is an aspect that's important to me and I need to achieve this. And I know it's easier said than done for some people, but it is essential and it is important. And I think it's also important to just be honest with people, because the last thing you want them to do is assume what they're,
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because then you're just going to get into a whole mess, and then it's going to be misunderstanding after misunderstanding.
Yeah. And I know on the last podcast, I actually had this wonderful woman, Kendra. She's a social worker. So we talked about boundaries, and she, in her very warm and inviting way, described, how to handle these, talking about social dynamics in the barn. And yeah, like, I think just generally, whether we're, riders and horse people listening to this, I'm sure can look at their barn experience. Yes, because that's just like a whole other entity and so many personalities within it. So again, it's always a challenge of how do I, just go to the barn and enjoy my horse without dealing with all sorts of stuff. And I don't know, I think you're pretty much the same. I'm pretty good at like putting up like putting myself in a bubble. I know some people might go, what? But it, like, just putting up some walls. And it might be to my face. I'm pretty good at having this face that says, okay, I'm here. I'm for me right now. Don't, please don't.
I think it's probably years of, like, for example, like being in a gym, and you see people coming into the gym and they want to talk to you because it's an opportunity to talk to you. I'm like, you know what, with all due respect, I'm not here to talk to you. I'm here to, like, for my own personal development. And a lot of my experiences with goals and stuff have been aligned with fitness and stuff like that. So sometimes I used to walk around the gym with earbuds in and nothing plugged into it. So just the very simple fact that I would have these would be a reason not to talk to me.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I think, just making eye contact and nodding and then just going about your business, people, I think, generally pick up on those cues.
And it's so funny you mentioned that, because as the massage therapist, so I'll be in a barn working away, and I'll be working on a horse for an hour. And sometimes I will be observing the fact that people are there to ride, but it takes them forever to get tacked up and get going because they get sidetracked. So then in my mind, I'm like, well, what's this doing to your riding time? What's this doing to the rest of your day as everything gets backlogged and you lose control of your time? And I'm not saying that you can't be social at the barn, but when our lives are already so determined by time and schedule, sometimes it's just good if you just watch what you're talking to somebody about and say, hey, if you want to chat later, let's have a phone call or something. Right. So yeah, like just letting people know, because I know for a fact that some of these people were like, oh, I just wanted to get on my horse and get riding. And now I'm a half hour late.
And I think mindset has a lot to do with it too, right? Like reconnecting to your intention on a daily basis and reminding yourself. So I'll often put little post-it notes around my apartment that just remind me of goals and things that I want to achieve. Like, for example, like on my coffee machine, right? Like
press start.
No, like cold bath, right? Like, or like things like that, where it's like, I have a constant reminder of these goals that I want to achieve, or the steps in the process as reminders, because sometimes, I can be a social butterfly at times too. And like being in a social environment, if I'm feeling a quote unquote, an energy buzz and I'm happy to be there and I'm excited.
Then the whole area knows about it.
Right. Then I can be, when I used to run fitness classes, I used to get a high off of helping so many people in a fitness class. So I can buzz around and do all that. But in the context of our day to day, I think it's important to just, remind yourself on a daily basis. And in those moments, like, okay, I'm coming here. It doesn't mean I have to be rude or ignore people, but what's your intention? Or in the words of Tim McGraw, how bad do you want it? Right? Like
cowboy up.
Yeah. Right. Like saddle up, let's go. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's important to just connect to that. And to be quite honest with you, most people, I'd say 95% of people are usually pretty reasonable at connecting to social cues and stuff like that. So, just be honest. You never be wrong by honest. And I can't remember who it was said that, but like, if people get offended by that, then maybe they're not the people you want around you, you know, as part of your team.
And as a part of your attainable goal. Situation. I know, like, we could probably talk forever about mindset and stuff. And I don't know, we have been very fortunate to come from DNA on both sides of our family that has a pretty strong mindset and very focused and gritty. Yeah, we're both very gritty, and our dad is no longer with us. But he was a great example for us at times of when you want something, go for it. And he always instilled that fire in us that if we want it, nothing can stop us.
No. And I think too, ultimately, like, he ended up having trouble with his addiction issue, but there were times where I think about him telling us, like, if you want anything in life, you got to grab bull by the horns and take control. And I can think of two examples. One, when he just decided off the one random day, he decided to quit smoking.
Oh yeah.
And he just stopped. And like, that's a prime example of, and I'm not saying that, like, I know for a lot of people, they struggle with smoking and quitting smoking, but like, my dad didn't have superpowers.
No.
As a matter of fact, he had a lot of challenges and flaws and things like that. But one thing that he did have was the ability to say, no, this is what needs to be done. And this is my only option. And I'm not going to do any otherwise. Right. And the time that he did persevere and clean up and stop drinking there for a few years, where it was like, oh my God, like,
Oh yeah.
he struggled that whole weekend. And I remember mom saying to me, like, it's probably good that you weren't around this weekend, but albeit dad came out of it, and like he did it because of his grit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we got to give kudos to our mom too. I mean, those listening to this who are close to us know that our mother was diagnosed with colon cancer
Yeah.
a year ago this past October.
Mm-hmm.
She has just graduated with a clean bill of health.
Woo!
Our mom is amazing.
Yeah.
She, the whole time, like, she went through 8 rounds of oral chemo.
6 months.
6 months worth. She worked out every day.
And she maintained a positive mindset the whole time. She's like, I know that at the end of the day, this is in my control, and I'm going to beat it. And
she's going to be 77 this February.
Yeah.
And she just bought her own rower.
Mm-hmm. So she's become addicted to rowing. So
she's just rowing her little ass every day, and she eats impeccably, and she's so focused. And to listen to her, if anybody were to say anything about, oh, Donna, do you need help with this? She's like, get out of my way.
Right. Yeah.
She is just incredible. And I know when I go to the gym, because mom works out at the gym, and Patrick and the owner of the gym, John, and just anybody who knows mom, like, if I'm feeling crappy and thinking I won't go to the gym, I think of Donna Mitchell.
Yeah.
Because if my mother can do it through 6 months of chemo, then the rest of us can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah, we've been very lucky with that, and yay, mom, you're an inspiration.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure.
So do you have any goals? We'll just end this. We'll wrap this up. Can you think of a goal other than, like, is there anything?
No, I think ultimately my my life trajectory in terms of personal development is to be the most well-rounded individual I can possibly be. Not only like physically strong, flexible, in terms of that, but also strong and flexible mentally, emotionally, being someone that can be grounded,
a good
person,
right?
You know what I mean? And I know that these, despite the fact we already talked about SMART goals, that these aren't very specific. This is a perfect example of some kind of abstraction, but within myself, I have these little check marks, like in terms of being well-rounded. Like I said earlier, I want to read a book a month, kind of thing like that. Spending time doing courses. I want to maybe do an additional qualification, which is an opportunity for teachers to upgrade their skill set. So I want to do an additional qualification in phys ed this year.
Nice.
So yeah, and I'd like to successfully continue to go to the gym 5 days a week and whatnot. So those are some kind of general steps that I'm going to take to kind of help me reach this well-rounded goal of mine. But it's not something that I'm limiting to 365 days. It's something that I'm going to continue to strive for however I'm on this earth.
Well, when you're that well-rounded and working on being that aware, I think then the other aspects of goals that you set for yourself kind of present themselves that much more, not easily necessarily, but if you're working on you, what can't you do?
Well, and I think when you're working on you, you also become you have a heightened awareness to opportunities that approach you or appear to you, and I think that has a big thing when it comes to achieving your overall success.
Going for those challenges that grow you and push you.
Don't be afraid of discomfort.
Don't be afraid. What is it? Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. Say that myself every time I do burpees.
So happy 2022.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation between brother and sister. It's awesome. I'm so happy to have him home. And so anyway, Rob, I hope you have an awesome year.
It's going to be wicked.
Okay, cool.
All right.